My wife cheated and tried to sell the villa I built to honor my father, but her betrayal sparked a legal war, exposed a forgery scheme, and led me to reclaim my life by turning pain into purpose. Nathan Carter's life was a blueprint, every line drawn with precision, until the night it all cracked open. He sat in a Las Vegas hotel room, the kind of sterile space that screamed expense but lacked soul. Beige walls, a king bed with too many pillows, and a minibar he hadn't touched. The clock on the nightstand blinked 11:47 p.m. He was wired, not from the conference he'd dominated all day, but from the nagging sense that something was off. His laptop glowed, casting sharp shadows as he scrolled through emails. His tie loosened, his jaw tight. The conference had been a marathon of handshakes, panels, and power dinners. Nathan, a Seattle real estate mogul, was in his element, methodical, sharp, always 3 steps ahead. He'd closed a deal on a retail complex, schmoozed with investors, and delivered a keynote on urban development that earned a standing ovation. But the applause felt hollow. His mind kept drifting to Rachel, his wife of 12 years, and the growing distance between them. She'd stop asking about his trips, stop texting during the day, he'd stop noticing when she did. He leaned back in the chair, rubbing his eyes. The conference was a win, but it didn't fill the void. Nathan was 42, successful beyond his father's wildest dreams, yet he felt like a guest in his own life. Rachel had been an interior designer when they met, her creativity a spark that lit up their early years. Now she was a stay-at-home spouse, her days filled with yoga classes and book. He didn't resent her for it, but he missed the woman who used to sketch furniture designs on napkins. They were polite strangers, sharing a house but not a home. His inbox pinged, another email, probably a follow-up from the conference. He clicked, expecting boilerplate gratitude. Instead, the subject line hit like a punch. Quick update. It was from Rachel. His stomach tightened. She rarely emailed. Texts were her thing, short and breezy. He opened it, the cursor blinking like a warning. The message was 3 sentences. Sold the beach house. Money's in the account. Talk soon. No greeting, no explanation, just words that didn't compute. The beach house. Their Narragansett villa. The one he'd designed, poured his soul into after his father died. It wasn't just a property. It was a monument to his grief, his grit, his need to build something lasting. His name was on the deed, not hers. How could she sell it? Why would she? Nathan read it again, his pulse hammering. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. He stood, pacing to the window. Vegas glittered below, a city of facades. He tried to call Rachel, but it went straight to voicemail. He texted, "What the hell is going on?" No reply. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, itching to fire back an email, but he stopped. He needed to think, not react. The villa wasn't just a house. It was where he'd scattered his father's ashes, where he'd spent months sketching blueprints, choosing every stone, every beam. Rachel had loved it too, hadn't she? They'd hosted friends there, watched sunrises from the deck. Or maybe that was his memory, not hers. He sat down, staring at the email. The words blurred as his mind raced. Sold. Money's in the account. Talk soon. It was so casual, so cold, like she'd sold a couch, not his heart. He checked the time, 12:09 a.m. Too late to call anyone, but he needed answers. He opened his browser, pulling up the county records for Narragansett. The deed was still in his name, last he'd checked. He typed furiously, but the site was down for maintenance. Of course. He slammed the laptop shut, his breath ragged. Sleep was out of the question. He poured a glass of water, downed it, then poured another. His hands shook. Nathan wasn't a man who panicked. He built empires, solved problems, stayed calm under pressure. But this wasn't a deal gone south or a missed deadline. This was betrayal, raw and personal. He thought of Rachel's face, her green eyes that used to light up when she laughed. When had they stopped laughing? He couldn't pinpoint it, but the distance had grown like a weed, unnoticed until it choked everything else. He opened the email again as if it might say something different. It didn't. He checked his bank accounts, personal, joint business. No unusual deposits. If she'd sold the villa, where was the money? And why hadn't she told him first? He thought of calling Mara Collins, his lawyer and friend since college, but it was too late. Mara would know what to do, though. She always did. The conference felt like a lifetime ago. The deals, the applause, the polished version of himself he'd presented to the world, it all crumbled. He sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The villa was his anchor, proof he could create something beautiful from pain. If it was gone, what did he have left? Rachel's email wasn't just a message. It was a grenade, and he was standing in the blast zone. He didn't sleep that night. By 5 a.m. he was on the phone with his assistant, booking the earliest flight back to Seattle. He needed to see Rachel, to look her in the eye and understand. But deep down, he knew the truth was already slipping through his fingers, like sand from the Narragansett shore. Nathan Carter's world didn't just crack, it shattered. The email from Rachel, his wife of 12 years, sat on his laptop screen like a death sentence. Sold the beach house, money's in the account, talk soon. The words were a blade, slicing through the fragile scaffolding of his life. He stood in the Las Vegas hotel room, the city's neon pulse mocking him through the window. His chest tightened, disbelief warring with a rage he hadn't felt in years. The Narragansett villa wasn't just a house, it was his soul poured into stone and glass, built to honor his father's memory. And Rachel had sold it like it was nothing. He read the email again, searching for a hint of remorse, an explanation, anything. There was none. Her tone was flippant, as if she'd offloaded a used car. Nathan's hands clenched, his knuckles white. The villa was in his name alone. He'd made sure of it. How could she sell it? Why would she? His mind raced. Replaying her words, money's in the account. He logged into their joint account, then his personal one, then the business account. Nothing. No deposits, no transfers. If she'd sold it, where was the cash? The lie was as bold as the betrayal. He paced the room, the carpet muffling his steps. The villa was more than a property. After his father's death, Nathan had thrown himself into its creation, sketching blueprints late into the night, choosing every detail, the cedar beams, the slate tiles, the wide windows framing the Atlantic. It was where he'd found peace, where he'd felt whole. Rachel had walked its halls, sipped coffee on its deck, smiled as friends toasted their hospitality. Had that all been a performance? He sank onto the bed, his breath shallow. The woman he'd loved, the woman he'd trusted, had gutted him with 3 sentences. Nathan's first instinct was to call her, to demand answers, but her voicemail greeted him again. He fired off another text. "You sold my house? Call me now." No response. His anger surged, hot and sharp, but beneath it was something worse. Hurt. He'd built a life for them, a fortress of success, and she'd torn it down without a word. He thought of their Seattle home, their polished routine, the way she'd pull away when he reached for her. The signs were there, but he'd ignored them, too busy building his empire to notice the cracks in his marriage. He opened his laptop again, pulling up photos of the villa. There it was. The stone path to the beach, the oak table he'd sanded himself, the view that made his chest ache. He could still smell the salt air, hear the waves. His father's ashes were scattered there, a quiet ceremony Rachel had watched with tears in her eyes. Or so he'd thought. Now, every memory felt tainted. Had she ever cared? He slammed the laptop shut, his vision blurring. He wasn't a man who cried, but the weight of it, the loss, the deception, pressed against his ribs. The clock read 2:14 a.m. in sleep, was a lost cause. He poured a bourbon from the minibar, the burn grounding him. He needed to act, not spiral. He opened his email, staring at Rachel's message. His fingers hovered over the reply button, but what could he say? How dare you, why? Words felt useless. Instead, he forwarded the email to Mara Collins, his lawyer and oldest friend, with a single line. Need to talk. Mara would cut through the fog, tell him what was possible, what was legal. If Rachel thought she could pull this off, she didn't know him at all. Nathan stood, staring at his reflection in the window. The man looking back was a stranger. Jaw clenched, eyes hollow. He'd spent years perfecting control, mastering every deal, every room. But this was chaos he couldn't negotiate. The villa was his line in the sand, the one thing he'd sworn to protect. Rachel knew that. Selling it wasn't a mistake. It was a declaration of war. He thought of their last trip to Narragansett 6 months ago. Rachel had been distant, scrolling her phone while he grilled steaks on the deck. He'd chalked it up to stress, maybe a bad day. Now he wondered who she'd been texting. The thought made his stomach churn. Was there someone else? Was the villa's sale tied to something bigger, something uglier? He pushed the idea away, but it lingered, a poison seeping into his thoughts. By 4 a.m. he was on his third bourbon, the bottle half empty. He'd booked a flight to Seattle for 7 a.m., canceling his remaining conference meetings. The deals could wait. This couldn't. He needed to see Rachel, to stand in their home and hear her explain. But even as he packed his suitcase, he knew the truth wouldn't come easy. Rachel's email wasn't a confession. It was a taunt. She'd thrown the first punch, and Nathan wasn't about to let her walk away unscathed. He lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, the bourbon dulling the edges of his rage. The villa was gone, or so she claimed, but he'd built it from nothing once. He could do it again, not the house, himself. Rachel had sold more than a property. She'd sold their past, their promises. As the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, Nathan made a silent vow. He'd get answers, he'd get justice, and he'd never let her break him again. Nathan Carter landed in Seattle with a fire in his chest, and Rachel's email burned into his mind. Sold the beach house. Money's in the account. Talk soon. The words looped like a bad song, each repetition stoking his anger and disbelief. The Narragansett villa, his villa, wasn't just a property, it was a piece of his soul, built to honor his father's memory. Rachel's casual betrayal had ripped that away, and he wasn't going to sit still. He needed answers, and he needed them now. The airport was a blur of noise and faces. Nathan moved through it like a man possessed, his suitcase trailing behind. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, hadn't done anything but replay the email and the impossibility of it. The villa's deed was in his name alone. He'd checked it last year during a refinance. Rachel couldn't sell it. Could she? Doubt gnawed at him, but he pushed it down. In the taxi to their Seattle home, he pulled up the Rhode Island County records on his phone. The site was back online, and after a few clicks, he found the deed. His name stared back, Nathan James Carter, sole owner. No transfer, no sale. Relief hit him, but it was fleeting. If the villa hadn't been sold, why did Rachel say it was? Was it a lie to hurt him, a mistake, or something worse? He screenshot the deed, his hand steady despite the storm inside him. Memories of the villa flooded back unbidden. He'd been 32 when his father died, a heart attack that came without warning. The grief had been a weight Nathan couldn't shake, so he'd turned it into something tangible. He'd bought the Narragansett plot, spent a year designing the house. Every beam, every window chosen with care. He'd hammered nails himself, sweat mixing with the salt air. The villa was his therapy, his proof that he could build something enduring from loss. Rachel had been there, smiling as they laid the foundation, or so he'd thought. Now he questioned every moment. He arrived home to an empty house. Rachel wasn't there, her car gone. The silence was deafening. He dropped his bag in the foyer and went straight to his office, a room Rachel rarely entered. He needed to act to regain control. He opened his laptop and called Mara Collins, his lawyer and friend of 20 years. Her voice was a lifeline when she answered. "Nathan, what's wrong?" Mara's tone was sharp, picking up on his tension. He forwarded Rachel's email and summarized it, his voice tight. He said she sold the villa. "It's in my name, Mara. I checked the deed, it's still mine. What the hell is going on?" Mara was silent for a moment, then said, "This sounds like fraud, or an attempt at it. Send me the deed in the email. I'll start digging." Fraud. The word hit like a brick. Nathan had considered betrayal, but fraud was a different beast. Calculated, illegal. How could she even try that? Forged signatures, fake documents. It's not hard if you know the right people, Mara said. Or the wrong ones. I'll call the county clerk, verify the deed status. We need to document everything. Emails, texts, bank records. Don't confront her yet. If this is fraud, we need evidence. Nathan nodded, though she couldn't see him. What's next? I'll get a private investigator if it comes to that. For now, check your accounts again. Look for anything odd, transfers, withdrawals, even small amounts. And Nathan? Stay calm. We'll figure this out. Calm. He was anything but. After the call, he poured a coffee and sat at his desk, the weight of Mara's words sinking in. Fraud. It wasn't just personal anymore. It was criminal. He opened his bank accounts, scrolling through transactions. Still no deposits from a supposed sale, but he noticed something. A $5,000 0 cents withdrawal from their joint account dated 3 days ago. Rachel hadn't mentioned it. He screenshotted it, his jaw tight. What else was she hiding? He thought of their marriage, the slow erosion he'd ignored. Rachel had changed over the years, her warmth replaced by a guarded edge. She'd started locking her phone, taking calls in other rooms. He'd told himself it was normal, that couples drift. But this was a chasm. He remembered their last dinner at the villa, her distracted smile as she texted under the table. Who was she talking to? The question twisted in his gut. Nathan pulled up the villa's photos again, needing to ground himself. The stone fireplace, the deck overlooking the bay, it was all still his, at least on paper. He could almost feel the wood under his hands, the hours he'd spent sanding beams, the pride when the house was done. His father would have loved it, would have clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You did good, son." Losing it wasn't an option. He emailed Mara the deed, the withdrawal screenshot, and every text he'd sent Rachel since the email. Documentation, she'd said. He'd give her everything. Then he leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The house felt too big, too quiet. Rachel's absence was a presence, her betrayal a shadow in every room. He wondered where she was. Yoga class, a friend's house, or someone else. The thought made his stomach turn. By evening, Mara called back. "The deed's clean, Nathan. No transfer filed. But I spoke to a contact at the Narragansett Real Estate Board. There's chatter about a recent listing for a villa matching yours pulled after a day. Could be a scam or a test run. I'm reaching out to the agency tomorrow. A test run. Nathan's voice was low, dangerous. She's playing games with my house? Or someone is. We don't know it's Rachel alone. Could be a partner, someone pushing her. Stay focused. I'm on this. Nathan hung up, his mind racing. A partner. The idea hadn't occurred to him, but it fit. Rachel wasn't a mastermind. She was impulsive, emotional. Someone else could be pulling strings. He thought of her late-night texts, her secrecy. Whoever it was, they'd picked the wrong man to cross. He didn't sleep that night, his mind too loud. He sat in his office, the villa's photos on his screen, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Rachel's email had been a grenade, but he wasn't defenseless. He'd gather the pieces, every document, every clue, and build his case. The villa was his, and so was the truth. He'd get both back, no matter what it took. Nathan Carter was done waiting for answers to fall into his lap. Rachel's email, sold the beach house, money's in the account, talk soon, had lit a fuse, and he was burning through disbelief into action. The Narragansett villa, his sanctuary, built from grief and grit, was still his on paper, but the threat of its loss was real. Mara Collins, his lawyer, had called it fraud, and that word now drove him. He wasn't just fighting for a house, he was fighting for control of his life. By morning, Nathan was on the phone with the real estate agency listed in Mara's intel. The agency, Coastal Elite Realty, had briefly posted a listing matching the villa's description before yanking it. He dialed their Narragansett office, his voice calm but edged with steel. The receptionist patched him through to an agent named Linda Harper, whose cheerful greeting faltered when Nathan introduced himself as the villa's owner. "I'm calling about a property you listed recently," he said, reading off the address. "It's mine. I didn't authorize a sale. What's going on?" Linda's pause was too long. That listing, it was a mistake. It's off the market now. I'm so sorry for any confusion." "Mistake?" Nathan's grip on the phone tightened. "My wife emailed me saying she sold it. My name's on the deed. You want to explain how this mistake happened?" Linda stammered, her voice high and nervous. I don't know the details offhand. Can I check our files and call you back? We'd never list a property without proper documentation." "Do that," Nathan said, "and send me every document you have, contracts, signatures, emails. I'm working with a lawyer and we're treating this as fraud." "Fraud," Linda's voice cracked. "I assure you, we followed protocol. I'll get those files to you today." Nathan hung up, his pulse hammering. Linda's flustered reaction wasn't just guilt, it was fear. She knew something. He forwarded the call details to Mara, who was already pulling strings. By noon, Mara called with a plan. "I reached out to a fraud investigator in Rhode Island," she said. "Detective Ron Alvarez, works white-collar crime. He's good, methodical, no nonsense. He wants to meet with you and review the agency's documents. Can you fly to Narragansett tomorrow?" "Done," Nathan said. He'd already booked a flight. Seattle felt like a cage, and Rachel was still mena. No calls, no texts, her car absent from their driveway. He didn't trust himself to face her yet. Mara was right. Evidence first, confrontation later. That afternoon, Linda emailed a zip file of documents. Nathan opened it, his coffee going cold beside him. The listing agreement was there, dated 4 days ago, with a sale price of $2,800,000, 0 cents, below market value for the villa. His stomach churned at the sight of his signature on the contract, a jag imitation that didn't match his clean, deliberate scroll. Rachel's name was listed as the seller's representative, her signature bold and unmistakable. There were emails, too, between Linda and Rachel discussing a quick sale and discreet handling. Nathan's vision narrowed, rage pulsing in his temples. Rachel hadn't just lied, she'd forged his name, played a role, and nearly pulled it off. He forwarded the file to Mara, who called within the hour. "This is textbook fraud," she said. "Forged signature, unauthorized listing, and Rachel acting solo. Alvarez will eat this up. The agency's liable too. They should have verified the signature. We've got a case, Nathan." "What does that mean?" Nathan asked, his voice low. "Can I stop this? Get the villa back?" "It's not sold yet, so yes, we can block any transfer. Alvarez will dig into Rachel's actions, maybe issue a cease and desist to the agency. If she's working with someone, he'll find them. To now, we file a complaint with the real estate board and start a civil suit against Rachel and the agency. You'll need to sign affidavits stating you didn't authorize this." "Explain the legal side," Nathan said. "In plain English, what am I walking into?" Mara's tone softened, but it was still crisp. "Fraud's a crime. Rachel could face charges, maybe jail if it's bad enough. Forgery's a felony in Rhode Island, up to 7 years. Civilly, you can sue for damages. legal fees, emotional distress, any financial loss. The agency's on the hook for negligence. They didn't do due diligence. Alvarez will investigate, gather evidence, maybe interview Rachel. If she's smart, she'll lawyer up. If not, she'll dig her own grave. Nathan absorbed it, his mind racing. Jail, felony. The words felt surreal applied to Rachel, the woman he'd married, the woman who'd once cried over a broken vase because it was a wedding gift. But that Rachel was gone, replaced by someone who'd forged his name and tried to steal his legacy. He thought of the villa, its stone walls, the ocean view. He'd fight for it, no matter the cost. The next day, Nathan landed in Rhode Island and drove to Narragansett. The villa stood untouched, its windows glinting in the afternoon sun. He walked the grounds, his boots crunching on the gravel path. It was still his, but the violation lingered. Inside, he found everything as he'd left it. The oak table, the leather couch, the photos of him and Rachel on the mantel. He turned them face down, his throat tight. Detective Ron Alvarez met him at a coffee shop nearby. He was mid-50s, stocky, with a handshake like a vice. His notebook was already open. "Mr. Carter, I've seen the documents. It's a clean case of forgery so far. Your wife's signature's on everything, and the agency's sloppy verification makes them complicit. I'll need your statement plus any communication with her since the email." Nathan handed over his phone, showing Rachel's email and his unanswered texts. "She's been dodging me. I don't know where she is." Alvarez nodded, jotting notes. "We'll track her down. I'm pulling her financials, phone records. If she's got a partner, we'll find them. Ever hear her mention anyone shady? Someone who might push her into this?" Nathan hesitated. "No one specific. She's been secretive lately, locked phone, private calls. I thought it was just marriage stuff." "Could be more," Alvarez said. "Fraud like this often involves a second player. We'll serve her a notice to appear for questioning. If she runs, it's worse for her." Nathan signed the affidavits, his hands steady but his mind churning. Rachel, questioned by police. Rachel, caught in a lie. The woman he'd loved was a stranger, and the villa was the battleground. As he left the meeting, he drove back to the villa, standing on the deck as the sun dipped low. The ocean roared, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Rachel had tried to take it, but he'd bury her in paperwork and truth before he let her win. Nathan Carter stood on the deck of his Narragansett villa, the ocean's rhythm a stark contrast to the chaos in his head. Rachel's email, "Sold the beach house, money's in the account, talk soon," had been a wrecking ball, exposing her forgery and fracturing their marriage. The villa was safe for now, thanks to Mara's legal maneuvers and Detective Alvarez's investigation, but the damage was done. Nathan wasn't just fighting for his property, he was dissecting 12 years of a life he thought he knew. Back in Seattle, he sat in his home office, the silence heavy. Rachel hadn't returned, her absence a loud accusation. He poured a whiskey, the burn a brief distraction, and let his mind unravel the marriage. The red flags were there, glaring in hindsight. Rachel's secrecy had started small, passwords on her phone, vague answers about her day. He brushed it off, blaming his long hours, his emotional distance. But there was more. She'd controlled their social calendar, steering him away from certain friends, dismissing his concerns with a smile and a subject change. Manipulation, subtle but constant, had woven through their years together. He remembered a dinner 2 years ago when Rachel had snapped at him for asking about a late-night call. "It's just a friend, Nathan. Stop interrogating me." Her tone had been sharp, her eyes cold. He'd backed off, not wanting a fight. Now he saw it for what it was, a deflection. She'd been hiding something, or someone. The thought twisted like a knife. Was it the same person who'd pushed her to forge his signature? Detective Alvarez had hinted at a partner, and Nathan's gut screamed agreement. He opened a drawer, pulling out a photo from their early days. Rachel, laughing on a hike, her hair wild in the wind. He'd loved her fire, her creativity. But that woman had faded, replaced by someone who lied with ease. He traced her face in the photo, anger mixing with grief. How had he missed it? He'd been so focused on building his empire, deals, properties, the villa, that he'd ignored the slow poison in their home. Rachel hadn't just betrayed him, she'd exploited his trust, his absence. Nathan set the photo down, his jaw tight. He thought of the villa, its stone walls a testament to his resilience after his father's death. Rachel had walked those halls, known what it meant to him, and still tried to sell it. That wasn't just greed, it was cruelty. He sipped his whiskey, the realization settling in. She'd never truly valued him, only what he provided. The cars, the house, the status. He'd been a means to an end. He stood, pacing the room. Confronting Rachel was tempting, calling her, demanding answers, watching her squirm. But it would give her power, a chance to manipulate again. No. He'd let the law handle her. Detective Alvarez was building a case, and Mara was prefacing a civil suit. Rachel would face consequences, not because of his anger, but because of her actions. For the first time, Nathan set a mental boundary. She was no longer his wife but a problem to solve. He thought of their fights, the ones he'd dismissed as normal, Rachel's tears, her accusations that he was too cold, too focused on work. He'd apologized, tried to bridge the gap, but it was never enough. Now, he saw the pattern. She'd weaponized his guilt, kept him on edge. The villa's near loss was the final straw, proof she'd cross any line. He wasn't blameless, he'd been distant, buried in his career, but he hadn't deserved this. Nathan sat at his desk, opening his laptop. He started a document, typing out every memory of Rachel's odd behavior, locked phones, secret calls, unexplained absences. It was a timeline of betrayal, each entry a brick in the wall he was building between them. He wrote about the $5,000, 0 cents withdrawal from their joint account, the forged signature on the listing agreement. It wasn't just for Mara or Alvarez, it was for him, a way to process the truth. Rachel had played him, but he wasn't her pawn anymore. By midnight, the document was 10 pages long. He saved it, feeling lighter, as if naming the lies had loosened their grip. He looked around the office, his space, his refuge. Rachel's touch was everywhere in the house, but not here. This was where he'd rebuild. He thought of the villa, its deck where he'd stood just yesterday. It was still his, and so was his future. Rachel had tried to steal both, but she'd failed. He leaned back, whiskey glass empty. The anger was still there, but it was focused now, a tool instead of a wildfire. He didn't need to scream at Rachel or beg for answers. The law would speak for him. Forgery charges, a civil suit, maybe jail. He'd let her drown in her own choices. For the first time in years, Nathan felt a spark of clarity. The marriage was dead, and he was done mourning it. He stood, stretching, and glanced at the clock. 1:07 a.m. Sleep might pang tonight, but not yet. He opened a browser, searching for Narragansett's tides, a habit from his villa days. The ocean was constant, unlike Rachel. He'd go back soon, walk the beach, let the waves wash away the last of her shadow. She'd sold a house, or tried to, but she'd lost him. And Nathan was just beginning to find himself. Nathan Carter sat in the Narragansett Villa's living room, the ocean's murmur filtering through the open windows. The house was still his, its stone walls a quiet defiance against Rachel's betrayal. Her email, sold the beach house, money's in the account, talk soon, had unraveled their marriage, exposing her forgery and lies. Now, with Detective Alvarez's investigation gaining traction and Mara Collins building a legal fortress, Nathan was ready for the truth to break through. He'd spent too long in the dark. A week after his meeting with Alvarez, Nathan got a call from Linda Harper, the flustered real estate agent at Coastal Elite Realty. Her voice was tight, apologetic. Mr. Carter, I've reviewed our files thoroughly. The signature on the listing agreement, it's not yours. We were misled. I'm deeply sorry for our oversight. Nathan leaned back in his chair, the villa's oak table solid under his hands. Misled how? You listed my house without verifying the owner. That's not an oversight, it's negligence. Linda's pause was heavy. The documents came from your wife, Rachel Carter. She provided a signed contract and a power of attorney, both with your name. We didn't cross-check the signatures against public records. It was a rush job, per her request. A rush job. Nathan's voice was low, controlled, but fury simmered beneath it. You nearly cost me my home. Who signed my name? I can't say definitively, Linda hedged, but the paperwork was submitted by Rachel. We've reported this to the authorities and are cooperating fully. Again, I'm so sorry. This is more than a mistake, Nathan said. You'll hear from my lawyer. He hung up, his pulse steady but his mind racing. Rachel had forged his signature, spun a web of lies, and nearly slipped away with it. The agency's apology was hollow. They'd been complicit, sloppy at best, greedy at worst. But the confirmation was a crack in Rachel's armor, and Nathan intended to pry it open. He called Mara, relaying Linda's admission. It's what we needed, Mara said, her voice crisp with purpose. Alvarez has the agency's documents and now their statement. Rachel's the linchpin. He's serving her a notice to appear for questioning tomorrow. If she dodges, it's a red flag for the prosecutor. Will she show? Nathan asked, staring at the villa's fireplace where he'd once pictured growing old with Rachel. Doesn't matter, Mara said. If she runs, it strengthens our case. Alvarez is pulling her financials. There's activity tied to a casino in Vegas. Could point to a partner or motive. Stay patient, Nathan. We're close. Nathan hung up, the word casino lodging in his mind. Rachel had never gambled, or so he thought, but her secrecy, the $5,000 0 cents withdrawal, the forged documents, it all pointed to something bigger. He thought of her late-night texts, her guarded phone. Was she in debt? Protecting someone? The questions gnawed, but he pushed them aside. The truth was coming, whether she liked it or not. The next day, Alvarez called with an update. "Rachel's been served," he said, his tone matter-of-fact. "Notice to appear at the Narragansett PD in 2 days. She's back in Seattle, confirmed by her credit card activity. We found a charge at a bar last night, another at a hotel. She's not hiding, but she's not at your house either." Nathan's jaw tightened. A hotel. She wasn't even pretending to face him. What's next? "We question her," Alvarez said. "I'll ask about the forgery, the agency, her motives. If she's got a lawyer, they'll coach her to stay quiet. If not, she might slip. Either way, we're building a felony case. Forgery, attempted fraud. The casino charges are interesting too. Looks like she's been wiring money to an account in Vegas. Could be a boyfriend, a bookie, or both." Nathan's stomach turned. A boyfriend. The idea had hovered, but hearing it aloud made it real. "Keep me posted," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. He stood, walking to the villa's deck. The Atlantic stretched before him, vast and unyielding. He'd built this place to anchor himself after his father's death, and Rachel had tried to rip it away. Her notice to appear was a small victory, but it wasn't enough. He wanted her to face him, to see the man she'd underestimated. But he stayed silent as Mara had advised. Let the law do its work. In Seattle, Rachel's world was shifting. Nathan learned through a mutual friend that she'd been at a bar, laughing loudly as if nothing was wrong. But the friend added a detail. Rachel had seemed nervous, checking her phone constantly. When the friend asked about Nathan, Rachel had changed the subject. The cracks were showing. Her charm, her control, were slipping. Nathan returned to the villa that evening, sitting with a glass of bourbon. The house felt alive, its walls whispering memories of his father, his labor, his pride. Rachel's betrayal couldn't erase that. He opened his laptop, adding to the document he'd started, a timeline of her lies, now including Linda's confession and Alvarez's update. It was his shield, his proof that he wasn't the fool she'd taken him for. As the sun set, casting gold over the bay, Nathan felt a shift. The villa was his, and so was his resolve. Rachel's questioning loomed, a reckoning she couldn't dodge. He didn't need her apologies or her tears. He needed justice, and it was coming. The truth was cracking through, and with it, Nathan was reclaiming his life, one piece at a time. Rachel Carter's carefully curated life was collapsing, and Nathan watched it happen from a distance, his anger tempered by a cold resolve. Her email, "Sold the beach house, money's in the account, talk soon," had been the spark that exposed her forgery, her lies, and now her unraveling. Detective Alvarez's investigation had served her a notice to appear for questioning, and the noose was tightening. Nathan sat in his Seattle office, the villa's safety secured but his heart still raw, as Rachel's world crumbled under the weight of her own choices. Alvarez called the morning after Rachel's scheduled questioning. "She showed up," he said, his voice clipped. "With a lawyer, some slick guy from downtown. She denied everything at first, said she didn't know the listing was unauthorized, claimed it was a misunderstanding. But when we showed her the forged signature, she cracked." Nathan leaned forward, gripping the phone. "Cracked how?" "Started blaming someone named Eli Cross," Alvarez said. "Said he pressured her, fed her the idea to sell the villa. Claims he's a friend who needed money fast, gambling debts from what we gathered. Her lawyer shut her down quick, but the name's out. We're tracking Cross now. He's got a rap sheet, fraud, petty theft, known to hang around Vegas casinos." Eli Cross. The name hit Nathan like a punch, a boyfriend, a manipulator, just as Alvarez had suspected. Rachel's late-night texts, her secrecy, the $5,000, 0 cents withdrawal, it all pointed to this man. "What's her story?" Nathan asked. "Is she sticking to it?" "She's scrambling," Alvarez said. "After blaming Cross, she got quiet, teary. Said she didn't mean to hurt you, that it was a desperate move. Her lawyer's pushing for a deal, but we've got enough for felony forgery and attempted fraud. The casino transfers, $12,000, 0 cents total, to an account linked to Cross. Tie her to him. She's not walking away clean." Nathan's jaw tightened. Rachel's tears didn't move him. She'd forged his name, tried to steal his villa, and now played the victim. What's next? "We're bringing Cross in," Alvarez said. "Rachel's back home, but she's under watch. If she bolts, we'll know. The prosecutor's reviewing charges. You'll need to testify if it goes to trial. Mara's got the civil suit locked down. Agency's ready to settle to avoid a PR mess." Nathan hung up, his mind churning. Rachel, desperate, manipulated by some low-life gambler. It fit her impulsiveness, her need for validation. But it didn't excuse her. She'd chosen Cross, chosen the lie. He opened his laptop, adding Alvarez's update to his timeline of her betrayal. Every detail was a brick in the wall between them. Word spread fast. A mutual friend texted Nathan. Heard Rachel's in trouble. She was at a cafe yesterday, looked like hell. Said you're divorcing her? Nathan didn't reply. Rachel's social circle, once loyal, was shrinking. Another friend called, voice hesitant. She's telling people you're overreacting, that it was a mistake, but no one's buying it. Nathan listened, his face blank. Rachel's charm had always been her shield, but it was failing her. Friends who'd once fawned over her dinner parties were pulling back, their texts unanswered, their invitations ignored. She was alone, and Nathan felt no pity. She'd built this cage herself. He drove to a coffee shop, needing air. As he sipped an espresso, his phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. I'm sorry, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. He stared at it, his thumb hovering over the reply button. A month ago, he might have called, demanded answers. Now, he saw it for what it was, a plea for control. He didn't respond, forwarding the text to Mara instead. More evidence, he wrote. Mara called minutes later. She's fishing, she said. Trying to gauge your reaction. Don't engage. Alvarez says her lawyer's nervous. She's a liability to herself. The civil suit's moving fast. The agency's offering $100,000, 0 cents to settle. We'll push for more. Focus on you, Nathan. She's not your problem anymore. Nathan nodded, though Mara couldn't see. Rachel wasn't his problem, but her shadow lingered. He thought of Eli Cross, a man who'd preyed on her weaknesses. Part of him wanted to confront him, to see the face of the man who'd helped destroy his marriage. But that was a distraction. Cross was Alvarez's target, not his. Back home, Nathan sat with a bourbon, the house quiet. Rachel's things were still there, her books, her yoga mat, but they felt like relics of a stranger. He'd hired a lawyer to start divorce proceedings, keeping it separate from the fraud case. He didn't want her back, didn't want her apologies. He wanted closure, and it was coming. He opened his laptop, pulling up photos of the villa. The stone path, the ocean view. It was his. And Rachel's failure was proof of his strength. He'd fought for it, not with fists, but with evidence, with resolve. Her world was unraveling, and he was steady. Friends might pity her, but they'd see the truth soon enough. Rachel had gambled and lost, and Nathan was done paying her debts. As the night deepened, he stood at the window, Seattle's skyline a distant glow. Rachel's text glowed on his phone, unanswered. She was unraveling, and he was rising. The villa was his anchor, but it was also a reminder. He could rebuild, not just houses, but himself. Rachel's lies had cracked his world, but the truth was setting him free. Nathan Carter stood on the deck of his Narragansett villa, the Atlantic's salt air cleansing the last traces of Rachel's betrayal. Her email, sold the beach house, money's in the account, talk soon, had nearly cost him this place, his sanctuary built from grit and grit. But with Mara Collins' legal maneuvering and Detective Alvarez's relentless pursuit, the villa was his again. The forged sale had been reversed, the real estate agency settlement wired to his account. Rachel was facing charges, her life unraveling with Eli Cross in custody. Nathan was free, and for the first time in years he felt the stirrings of purpose. He walked the villa's grounds, his boots crunching on the gravel path. The house had weathered the storm, but it bore scars. A cracked window from a storm, a loose railing on the deck. Nathan grabbed a toolbox, the weight of a hammer grounding him. Fixing the railing was slow work, each nail a small act of reclamation. He sanded the wood, stained it, and stepped back, hands on his hips. The villa wasn't just a house, it was a mirror of his resilience. Rachel had tried to break it, break him, but both stood stronger. Inside, he patched a leak in the guest bathroom, the rhythm of work soothing. Each repair was symbolic, a stitching of wounds, his father's death, his fractured marriage, his own detachment. He'd spent years chasing deals, neglecting his soul. The villa had been his anchor, but now it was a starting point. He wanted more than survival, he wanted to live. Nathan started journaling, a habit he'd abandoned in his 20s. Late at night, with the ocean's hum in the background, he wrote about his father, the villa's creation, Rachel's betrayal. The words flowed, raw and unfiltered, unearthing emotions he'd buried. He wrote about guilt, his distance in the marriage, his failure to see Rachel's lies. But he also wrote about hope, about the man he could become. The journal became a map, guiding him back to himself. One morning he found an old camera in a closet, a Nikon his father had given him. He'd loved photography as a teen, capturing Seattle's rain-soaked streets, but work had smothered that passion. He dusted off the lens, charged the battery, and drove to Narragansett Bay. The sunrise was a blaze of pink and gold, the water shimmering like glass. Nathan framed the shot, adjusting the aperture, his hands steady but his heart racing. Click. The image was imperfect, slightly overexposed, but it was his. He took another, then another, losing himself in the light, the angles, the moment. Back at the villa, he uploaded the photos, studying them on his laptop. They weren't professional, but they were alive, a piece of him reborn. Signed up for a photography course online, spending evenings learning about composition, lighting, post-processing. The villa became his studio, its textures, stone walls, weathered wood, a canvas for his lens. He shot the deck at dawn, the fireplace at dusk, each image a step toward clarity. Photography wasn't just a hobby, it was a release, a way to see the world, and himself, anew. Nathan's days took on a rhythm. Mornings were for repairs or walks on the beach, the ocean's vastness a reminder of his smallness, his strength. Afternoons, he journaled or edited photos, the villa's quiet a balm. Evenings, he meditated, a practice he'd scoffed at before but now embraced. Sitting cross-legged on the deck, he focused on his breath, letting go of Rachel's shadow, Eli's manipulation, the weight of the past. The villa was no longer just a refuge, it was a forge, shaping him into someone new. Mara called weekly, updating him on the legal front. Rachel's case was moving toward a plea deal, formerly charges reduced, if she cooperated against Eli Cross. The civil suit had netted Nathan $150,000, 0 cents from the agency, enough to cover legal fees and more. "You're clear," Mara said. "The villa's yours, no liens, no disputes. What's next for you?" "I'm figuring that out," Nathan said, and he meant it. He wasn't the man who'd left for Vegas months ago, polished but hollow. He was raw, real, rebuilding from the ground up. He started small, reconnecting with old passions. He bought a guitar, fumbling through chords he'd played in college. He cooked again, simple meals, grilled fish, roasted vegetables, savoring the process. The village kitchen, once Rachel's domain, became his, the act of creation a quiet rebellion. He invited Mara for dinner one weekend, serving salmon and wine on the deck. She arrived with a smile, her sharp edges softened by the setting. "You're different," she said, sipping her wine. "Lighter. This place suits you." "It's more than the place," Nathan said. "It's me. I'm not running anymore." Mara nodded, her eyes warm. They'd talked late into the night about the case, his photography, her own battles as a single mom. Their friendship, steady for decades, felt deeper now, a trust born of shared scars. Nathan didn't push for more, didn't need to. Her presence was enough, a reminder that connection didn't have to hurt. He drove to the bay the next morning, camera in hand. The sunrise was softer, clouds streaking the sky. He shot it, frame by frame, each click a pulse of joy. Back at the villa, he printed his favorite, a silhouette of a gull against the dawn, and hung it in the living room. It was a small act, but it felt monumental. The villa was his, but so was this life he was carving out. One image, one repair, one breath at a time. Nathan stood on the deck that evening, a glass of wine in hand. The ocean stretched endless, its waves a song of persistence. Rachel's betrayal had cracked him open, but the pieces were coming together, stronger than before. He wasn't just reclaiming the villa, he was reclaiming himself. The man who'd built this house from grief could build a future from pain, and as the stars emerged, he knew he was ready for whatever came next. Nathan Carter's world had been rebuilt, not in the shadow of Rachel's betrayal, but in spite of it. The Narragansett villa, once nearly stolen by her forged signature, stood as a testament to his resilience. With the legal battles won and his heart mending through photography and journaling, Nathan craved movement, a chance to stretch beyond the villa's walls. He packed a bag, his camera and a notebook, and set out to rediscover himself in the wilds of Colorado, Montana, and Italy. In Colorado, he hiked the Rockies, his boots sinking into pine-scented trails. The mountains loomed, vast and unyielding, their peaks slicing the sky. He shot photos at dawn, mist curling over valleys, light fracturing through pines. A journal grounded him, a reminder that beauty endured beyond pain. He journaled by a campfire, writing about Rachel's email, the villa, his father. The words flowed, not with anger now, but with clarity. He wasn't running from her lies. He was running toward himself. Montana's plains stretched endless, a canvas of grass and sky. Nathan drove backwards, stopping to photograph bison grazing under a bruised sunset. The solitude was a gift, the silence broken only by wind and his thoughts. He meditated daily, cross-legged on a bluff, letting go of the man he'd been, distant driven, blind to Rachel's deceit. In a small diner, he sketched a cabin in his notebook, a vision of a simpler life. The idea lingered, a seed for the future. Italy was a revelation. Tuscany's hills, golden under the sun, felt like a painting. Nathan wandered Florence streets, his camera capturing cobblestones, cathedral domes, old men laughing over espresso. He rented a Vespa, weaving through olive groves, the wind sharp and alive. In a vineyard, he sipped Chianti, journaling about trust, about Mara's steady presence. She'd texted him photos of her son's soccer game, a quiet thread connecting them across oceans. He wrote her name in his notebook, a question mark beside it, not romance, not yet, but possibility. Nature was Nathan's church, its vastness humbling. In Colorado's peaks, Montana's plains, Italy's hills, he felt small, but whole, alive in a way he hadn't been in years. Rachel's betrayal had been a storm, but it had cleared the air. He was 42, not young but not old either. He had time to build, to love, to be. Back at the villa, Mara visited, bringing coffee and her dry humor. They sat on the deck, the Atlantic glinting below. "You look free," she said, her eyes searching his. "I am," Nathan said. "I spent years building for other people, Rachel, my dad, the business. Now it's for me." Mara smiled, a rare softness. "It suits you." They talked about her cases, his travels, the villa's future. Their friendship was a bridge, solid but open to more. Nathan didn't push, he didn't need to. Mara's presence was a promise, not a demand. He showed her his photos, the gull silhouette now joined by a Montana sunset, a Tuscan olive tree. "I'm thinking of a gallery," he said, "small, local, share what I see." "Do it," Mara said. "You're not just surviving, Nathan. You're creating." That night, alone, Nathan stood on the deck, the stars sharp overhead. Rachel's email felt like another life. He'd traveled far, not just in miles but in spirit. The villa was his route, but the world was his canvas. Mara's words echoed, "You're creating." And he was. And it felt like enough. Nathan Carter's life was his own again, the Narragansett villa beacon of his hard-won peace. Rachel's betrayal, her forged attempt to sell the house, had faded into a scar, no longer a wound. With his photography flourishing and Mara's friendship a steady anchor, Nathan was moving forward. But Rachel, it seemed, wasn't ready to let go. Her text arrived on a quiet morning, the words glowing on his phone. "We need to talk." Nathan stood in the villa's kitchen, coffee mug in hand, staring at the message. The audacity of it sparked a flicker of anger, quickly doused by indifference. Months ago, he'd have called, demanded answers, let her pull him back into her chaos. Now, he saw the text for what it was, a desperate grab for control. Rachel was facing felony charges, her social circle gone, her life tethered to Eli Cross's crimes. She had nothing left to offer but words, and Nathan wasn't buying. He set the phone down, unanswering. The villa's stone walls, the ocean's hum beyond, grounded him. Rachel's plea was a ghost, powerless unless he gave it life. He sipped his coffee, the bitterness sharp, and opened his lab to edit photos from Italy, Tuscan hills, Florence's domes. Each image was a piece of his new life, one she had no claim to. He forwarded the text to Mara, adding a note, "She's trying again. Ignoring it." Mara called within minutes, her voice calm but firm. "Good move," she said. "She's fishing, probably scared. Alvarez says her plea deal's shaky. Cross is flipping on her to save himself. She might want to soften you up, avoid your testimony. Don't give her an inch." "I won't," Nathan said, his gaze on the ocean through the window. "She's done enough." "She has," Mara said. "This is your new chapter, Nathan. You're not the man she hurt anymore. Keep it that way." He hung up, Mara's words settling like truth. He wasn't that man. Distant, trusting, blind. He was awake, alive, building a life from the ashes of her lies. Rachel's text was a last gasp, a reminder of who he'd never be again. He deleted it. The act final, freeing. Nathan walked to the deck, the Atlantic stretching vast before him. The villa was his, not just in deed but in spirit. Rachel had tried to steal it, to break him. But she'd only pushed him to rebuild stronger. He thought of Mara, her steady presence, the hint of something more. He thought of his photos, his travels, the gallery he was planning. Rachel's, "We need to talk," was irrelevant. He didn't need her words, her tears, her excuses. He needed this. The ocean, the villa, himself. The sun climbed, warming the deck. Nathan breathed deep, the salt air a promise. Rachel was the past and he was the future. Her final attempt had failed before it began. Nathan Carter stood in the Narragansett villa's living room, the Atlantic's steady pulse a backdrop to his hard-earned peace. Rachel's betrayal, her forged attempt to sell this house had once threatened to unravel him, but he'd fought back, reclaiming the villa and himself. Her recent text, "We need to talk," had gone unanswered, a final plea he'd ignored. He was done with her games, but closure, it seemed, demanded one last encounter, and it came uninvited. The doorbell rang on a crisp afternoon, shattering the villa's quiet. Nathan set down his camera. He'd been editing photos from Montana and checked the security feed. Rachel stood on the porch, her face pale, her posture rigid. His stomach tightened, not with fear but with resolve. He'd known this might happen, that she'd try to force her way back into his life. He opened the door, his expression stone. "Nathan," she said, her voice thin, unsteady. "Can we talk?" He stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. The villa was his sanctuary. She didn't get to cross its threshold. "You've got 5 minutes," he said, his tone flat. "Say what you came to say." Rachel flinched, her green eyes darting, searching for an opening. She wore a coat too heavy for the mild day, her hair pulled back tightly. "I'm sorry," she began, the words rushed. "I never meant for it to go this far, Eli." He pushed me, said it was the only way to fix things. "I was scared, Nathan. I didn't know what I was doing." He watched her, unmoved. Her apologies were rehearsed, her tears a performance he'd seen before. "You forged my name," he said. "You tried to sell my house, my father's memory. Don't blame Eli, you chose this." Her face crumpled, but she pressed on. "I know I hurt you. I was desperate. Debts. Pressure. I thought I could fix it before you found out. Please, Nathan. I'm not a monster. We had good years. Doesn't that mean anything?" Nathan's jaw tightened. The good years, her laughter, their hikes, the villa's early days flashed through his mind, but they were ghosts, tainted by her lies. "It meant something," he said, his voice low, deliberate, "until you sold it out. This," he gestured to the villa, the ocean beyond, "is the end, Rachel. There's nothing left to say." She stepped closer, reaching for his arm, but he stepped back, his eyes hard. "Don't," he said. "You don't get to touch me, to beg, to rewrite this. You're facing charges. Own it." Rachel's tears fell, but Nathan saw through them. She wasn't sorry for him, she was sorry for herself, caught in the wreckage of her choices. "I just wanted us to talk," she whispered. I don't know, find a way back?" "There's no way back," he said. "Go home, Rachel, or wherever you're staying, this is over." She stood frozen, her breath hitching, then turned and walked to her car, her steps slow, defeated. Nathan watched her drive away, the sound of her engine fading into the ocean's roar. He didn't feel triumph, only a quiet release. The confrontation had been inevitable, but he'd faced it on his terms, composed, untouchable. Inside, he sat on the couch, the villa's warmth enveloping him. He didn't need to forgive Rachel aloud. The act was internal, a letting go of her hold on his heart. He'd carried her betrayal too long, let it define him. Now, he released it, not for her but for himself. The villa was his, not just in deed but in spirit, a place of healing, creation, possibility. Nathan stood, walking to the deck. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of fire. He breathed deep, the salt air filling him with peace. Rachel was gone, and with her the last tether to a life he no longer wanted. He was free, not just to survive but to thrive, to build, to be. The villa's stones, the ocean's song were his witnesses. Closure wasn't a moment, it was this house, this breath, this life, he'd claimed. Nathan Carter stood on the deck of his Narragansett villa, a glass of wine in hand, the Atlantic's waves a steady hymn to his rebirth. Rachel's betrayal, her forged attempt to sell this house, had once threatened to break him, but it had forged him instead. The villa, his monument to his father's memory, was now more than a home. It was a beacon of his resilience, a space for creation and connection. With the legal battles won, Rachel's charges pending, and his own heart mended through photography and travel, Nathan was ready to share this sanctuary with the world. The idea had come during a quiet evening at the villa, as he watched the sunset with Mara Collins. They'd talked about legacy, about what the villa could be. "It's too big for one person," he'd said. "It should be alive, filled with people, ideas." Mara, ever practical, had nodded. A retreat. Artists, writers, photographers. A place to create. The seed was planted, and Nathan ran with it. He spent weeks planning, transforming the villa into a creative retreat center. He hired a local contractor to update the guest rooms, adding workspaces and natural light. The living room became a communal hub with easels, bookshelves, and a grand piano he'd bought on a whim. The deck, where he'd found solace, was now a gathering spot for evening discussions, the ocean a backdrop to inspiration. He named it Carter Haven, a nod to his father, and launched a website offering residencies to emerging artists. Applications poured in, painters from Chicago, poets from Maine, a sculptor from Santa Fe. Nathan reviewed each one, moved by their passion, their hunger to create. The first retreat was a leap. 10 artists arrived, their energy filling the villa with life. A novelist drafted chapters in the study, a photographer shot the bay at dawn, a musician strummed on the deck. Nathan joined them, sharing his own photos, listening to their stories. He cooked dinners some nights, grilling fish and laughing over wine, the villa's walls soaking in the joy. One artist, a young woman named Lila, painted a mural in the hallway, a wave crashing against stone, a tribute to resilience. Nathan hung his gull silhouette photo beside it, his own mark on this new chapter. Hosting wasn't just logistics, it was connection. Nathan found himself mentoring, offering insights from his real estate days, his travels, his recovery from Rachel's betrayal. The artists called him the Anchor, a nickname that made him smile. He wasn't just giving them space, he was building a community, something Rachel's lies could never touch. Mara visited often, her son tagging along, kicking a soccer ball in the yard. She'd tease Nathan about his art commune, but her pride was clear. "You've turned pain into this," she said one night, gesturing to the villa's glow. "That's power." Evenings were Nathan's favorite. After the artists retreated to their rooms, he'd sit on the deck with a glass of Pinot Noir, the ocean a mirror of his calm. The villa hummed with purpose, its stones no longer just his refuge but a shared dream. He'd journal sometimes, reflecting on the journey. Rachel's email, the forgery, the fight to reclaim his life. Those days felt distant, like a story he'd read, not lived. He'd forgiven her, not for her sake but for his own, a quiet act that freed him to be here, now. One night, as stars peppered the sky, Nathan leaned back, wineglass cool in his hand. The retreat's first session was ending, the artists packing their work, promising to return. Lila's mural caught the moonlight, a reminder of what he'd built. He thought of Rachel, her plea for forgiveness, her car fading down the drive. She'd sold a house, but he'd found himself. The villa was his heart, but Carter Haven was his soul, a place where others could find theirs. His voice, soft but sure, carried over the waves. "She sold a house, but I found myself," the ocean answered, its rhythm a promise of new dawns, and Nathan smiled, whole at last.